Coming up on Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
I went in for my first visit. We have your blood drawn. They confirm your pregnancy. About a week later, I got a bill for a test called toxoplasmosis. So I called the doctor. First thing he said to me was, Janet, you have to have an abortion.
Welcome to a place where we discover the freedom and healing found only in Jesus Christ. Through powerful stories, our guests tell how He turns pain into peace, rewrites lives, and restores the wholeness only He can give. This is Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
Welcome to Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's topic is healing from abortion. In today's culture, our culture will want to tell you that abortion is a woman's choice. And pro-abortion organizations like Planned Parenthood will tell you that abortions do not harm women emotionally or psychologically, which is the furthest thing from the truth. My special guest today, Janet Cerqua, she has experienced the trauma of abortion, but she no longer lives in the guilt and the shame and the depression that followed after that. But instead, she is going to share how Jesus has forgiven her and how He has changed her life into a life of love, joy, and peace. Janet, she was born in Portland, Oregon, and she was the fourth of 11 children. And she went to the University of Oregon and got her BSN in nursing. And she practiced as a cardiac rehab nurse for many, many years. But her primary passion has been helping women heal from their past abortion. And she first started volunteering at Real Options, which is a pregnancy resource center in Dallas, where she lived at the time. And she was active serving there from the 1990s to 2012. And in 2012, she moved to Tyler. And after she retired from her nursing career, she then started actively serving with CARE, which is Christ-Centered Abortion Recovery and Education. And Janet has been volunteering there since 2015 up to this present day. Anyhow, just wanted you to get a little bit about who Janet is, and I'm so excited that she is here to share her story. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Grace.
All right, Janet. So why don't you tell the listeners kind of what your childhood was like?
Crazy. As Grace already said, I was number 4 of 11 children. But what was interesting was that all 4 of us were born between 1950 and 1952, or the first 4 were. I have a sister that was born in the same year that I was.
Wow.
In January, and I was born in November.
Wow. I mean, your mom was a very hardworking endurance mom, I'm telling you. 11 kids?
Yes.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. And so did y'all attend church when y'all were growing up?
We did. We attended a Catholic church in Salem. And also we went to the school there. So I went pretty much 11 years to Catholic schools.
Okay. And so would you say that you had a relationship with God, or did you just really knew more about who He was?
So I really did not have a relationship as I've learned what a relationship is with God at this point in my life. We went to church every Sunday. I went to Mass every day but Saturday. But I was afraid of God.
Yeah.
I felt like the description I would say is He sat up in heaven on a throne with these big black boots on and kept kicking at me. Instead of bringing me into the heaven, He was kicking me out of heaven. And so kind of as a result of that, I was afraid of Him. And so I really did not have a relationship with Him at all.
Right. You know, talking to a lot of people, including myself growing up, I wasn't a believer. That's kind of how I viewed God. I knew God existed, but I thought He was this God who was a punishing God, you know, and was always looking for the next thing you were going to do wrong. and you were afraid of him. And so Janet, when you finished high school, went to college, tell us about your first marriage.
So I graduated in 1974 with my degree in nursing and got married in 1975. And my husband at that time had also graduated at the same time. He was in business. And so we started, our marriage and bought a house, did all the things that, quote, the young married people should do.
Right.
And about 5 years into our marriage, we decided we were going to start a family.
Okay, good. So did you have any trouble conceiving or getting pregnant?
I did not.
Okay.
Once we decided, I got pregnant pretty quickly.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant?
Pretty excited. I was elated. I'd always wanted to be a mom. Now, you would think after having 10 brothers and sisters, I may have chosen something else, but I really wanted to be a mom.
Right. And your husband also was excited.
Yes.
And found out.
Yes.
So tell us the day when you went in to see your doctor and he had some really concerning news.
Well, actually, it wasn't the first time I saw him that I got the news. So I went in for my first visit. We have your blood drawn. They confirm your pregnancy. Everything seemed to be going fine. And about a week later, I got a bill in the mail from a lab, and it was for a test called toxoplasmosis. And, of course, being the nurse that I am, toxin means something bad, and plasma is blood. So I figured that I had gotten somebody else's bill. And so I called the doctor's office and left a message, and he called me back, and first thing he said to me was, "Janet, you have to have an abortion."
Wow.
Which stopped me. I was at work, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
So I asked him a little bit about it, and what he decided to do, we would redraw the blood and compare the two. So I went in and had the blood redrawn, but they had already thrown out the first sample, so there was no comparison. And what they were trying to figure out is if this was an active problem or if I had it in the past, like we do with measles. Once we've had measles or a childhood disease, it'll always show up in your blood, but they can tell if it's active or not. So there was about a 2-week period then where we went back and forth with him and were seen by an infectious disease doctor. And the final decision on their part, because they weren't able to say 100%, was that they felt that the best thing to do would be to terminate the pregnancy.
Okay. Because they felt this infection that you had was going to infect the baby as well and end up with birth defects or have complications, and for whatever reason, he told you to end the pregnancy. And so you were definitely floored when he told you that was his, recommendation. And so how did your husband react?
It's kind of foggy as I look back at that, but I do remember him telling the doctor and me that there was any possibility that there would be something the matter with the baby. He wanted to terminate it.
Oh, okay. So he really was for getting the abortion. And were you able to even voice what you were thinking, or were you one to just say, okay, I'll listen to my husband, I'll listen to my doctor, which I totally get, because these two men, who are important in your life, what do you do?
Right. Well, I did not feel that I had an opinion in the matter. And so I ended up agreeing, which still makes me very responsible for that decision. But I made that decision because I didn't feel that my opinion was going to be worth it. And, of course, it would have been to not terminate the baby.
Right.
But this kind of, when I was preparing for this, Grace, and I was thinking about all this really shows how a decision like that can be made later in your life based on how you were raised and how you were taught. And in growing up, there wasn't really an opportunity to disagree a lot with my parents.
Right.
So what they said went. And, of course, going to the Catholic schools that I did, the same thing was from the priests and the nuns, is whatever they said was right. And so I didn't really have to make a decision at that point in my life growing up.
Others made it for you.
Right. And to challenge caused a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
And I did not like conflict. And so I just really didn't learn how to have an opinion about much of anything. So as I look at that now, it did not surprise me that I would go along with that decision and go along with it wholeheartedly. But deep down inside, I was grieving.
Right. You had mentioned that you grew up in the Catholic faith, you know, and, the Catholic Church has always been known to be against abortion. So I don't know if that was something that was very conflicting, if that was part of the struggle that you had, or not so much.
It could have been. When it really hit me that we had actually had an abortion was when I got the bill from the insurance company, and they said they would not pay for it because it was an abortion. And I just...
Oh, wow.
I threw the bill down on the table, and I just really got upset. And then it dawned on me what we had done. I don't know if it was prior to that, if I thought, but I really didn't want it, so it really couldn't have been an abortion. I was not thinking really clearly.
Well, in 1975, abortion was legal, and they had just became legal in the United States. And back then, most people didn't know too much about, the beginning of life and all of that. You know what I mean?
Well, we didn't have ultrasound at that time.
Correct.
But you would think as an RN and having gone through OB training in school that I would have connected that.
Right.
But I also feel like at that time I was just under a lot of stress and confused that I don't know if I could have thought through it any more clearly than I did.
Right. Well, I think a lot of women, when they are faced with that decision, and if it's not their decision to choose the abortion, somebody else is really pushing you to do that. And they're almost like coerced, but you don't know that you actually necessarily are being coerced at the time. You're just trying to, not cause any problems and do what the doctor says, do what your husband says, and move on with life. And so, and that's how you were as a young married, So after that abortion, once you realized you got that bill, and then the whole impact of what actually had happened finally hit you. And that was a few weeks after the procedure. And so did you and your husband ever talk about it after that, or no?
Not that I can remember. Okay. I do remember that So I know I must have known it was wrong because we said we were going to tell our families that I miscarried.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So.
And then it became very complicated.
Okay.
because I knew that I was lying.
Right. Okay. So how long did y'all stay married?
Well, after we terminated the pregnancy, I got pregnant a year later and then miscarried.
I see.
And after that, I was unable to get pregnant after years of infertility workup. And at that time, there wasn't, they didn't do like in vitro or much.
Right.
Not a lot of what they're doing now.
Right.
And so I don't know, Grace, how long it was, but it seemed like it was like about 5 years that we worked at that. And I was done. I just told my husband I was done and asked him about adoption, and that was not an option either.
Okay.
And at that point, I really began to sink into a depression, although at the time I didn't know that was happening.
Okay.
Because my dream of having a family was not going to happen.
Okay. So definitely with that miscarriage, a year later after the abortion, I'm sure, you may not even remember any of it, but, I know of women who have had miscarriages after an abortion and have had trouble with, fertility. And then a lot of those women feel like that is a punishment that they deserve because of the abortion. And I don't know if that was something that you struggled with. You probably couldn't articulate it at the time, and so.
I don't think I could have articulated, but I know that it was in my mind.
Right. Right.
And of course I knew for sure I was going to go to hell because it was one of the unforgivable sins. At least that's how I perceived the 10 Commandments when we were growing up.
Right.
And so I couldn't, I did not have a personal relationship with God at the time, but I knew God. Mm-hmm. But I could not have anything to do with him.
Right. Well, you probably felt very unworthy, And so I know that's how I felt for many years. I had my abortion when I was not a believer. And so, but even when I became a believer, I still felt unworthy, And so, so your marriage did dissolve after 5 years?
No, it didn't. So we had been married 5 years when I got pregnant. And then at the point that I was not getting pregnant, and I felt that the doctor pretty much had said, Janet, we've done everything that we can. With my husband not wanting to adopt and so I knew I wasn't going to be able to be a mom. I walked out of my house. I remember exactly where I was standing to this day, and I just felt if I did not get out of this house, I was going to die. Now, why, I don't know, but that's how intense that feeling was.
Right.
So I got one of my best friends, and she helped me find an apartment, and so I moved into an apartment. And pretty much separated myself from my husband in terms of even talking to him, but also my whole family. Okay. I isolated myself.
Right.
I didn't talk to my parents. I didn't talk to my sister that I was really close to.
Looking back now, I'm sure you knew you were very, very angry.
Yes, but I didn't allow myself to be angry. And so what ended up happening is, as we teach in our Bible study, that if you repress your anger and you don't get rid of that anger, it can very easily go into depression and cause bitter roots and stuff.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure I was sinking, but did not know it. And the people around me, which were my coworkers, if they thought something was going on, they never said anything to me about it.
Okay. So you pretty much were just bottling all these emotions, thoughts, all inside of you.
Right.
And internalizing it and never even, gave notice to it. And then you slid into depression, which is very, very common, for people who are post-abortive and they're not able to express the grief and, you sink into that. And so you were really at the lowest point of your life at that time.
But the severity of the depression didn't show for a few more years. So while I was in the living in the apartment, one of my sisters, Mary, who is, she was 7 years younger than I was, sent me a package. And in the package was this Bible, this little devotional and a letter that she wrote me. And
Wow.
And I have it. It's the original.
Yes.
And
That's great.
What she talked about was, she asked me in it if I had, how did she say this? I'm wondering if you have been able to talk and unload your grief and problems on Christ. I'm not trying to be nosy, pushy, or preachy. I just want to encourage you to lean on Him. And then she went on to talk about how God was really important in her life when she had gone through a difficult time.
Yeah.
So I took the package and I just put it up on the bookshelf. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Read the letter, understood it, but that was about it. And it was about a month later, for no apparent reason, I took this little devotional book, stuck it in my lab coat. And I was close enough at that time living in the apartment to walk to work. So I walked to work and I walked into the chapel. And to this day, I don't know how God must have taken me in there because I don't remember doing that.
Right.
And it was a really small chapel. There was like 3 rows of pews, and there was a cross on the wall. No body of Jesus on it, but just the cross. And so I sat down and I opened this little devotional to the chapter on fear. And it said, what I looked at, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Of course, that's Isaiah 41:10. And I looked up at the cross, and I know Jesus was not on that cross, but He came down, and He stood in front of me and told me, he goes, "Janet, there is nothing that you can do that will destroy my love." And I walked out of that chapel that day changed.
Awesome. Yeah. So you had an encounter, a living encounter with the living God.
I did.
Yeah.
And, when I started telling people about it, they just, because they didn't understand it and they did not have relationships with God, they thought I was weird.
Well, yeah.
And it took me many, many years before I would even share this. But it was real.
But you knew at that moment that Jesus loved you.
Yes.
You heard Him say that to you.
And I desperately needed to hear that because I did not feel loved by Him, but love in general. So,
Right. So after that encounter, did you start, obviously, you started reading the devotional, maybe took the Bible off the shelf?
Yes, a little bit. What I ended up doing was I went back home. I felt I didn't feel God told me to go back home. Also started looking for a church, which was really interesting because I thought for sure I might go back to the Catholic Church because that's all I knew, but it wasn't. So I went to some Pentecostal churches and some charismatic churches.
Okay. Yeah.
But went home and because I felt very strong that God wanted me to make an effort in my marriage. But it wasn't meant to be. So we ended up getting divorced.
Okay.
And it was after the divorce that the depression became very, very severe to the point where I collapsed.
See. Oh, wow. Okay.
And the doctor that I was working for at the time, actually I wasn't at work. I was with a younger brother, and my younger brother called him, and they wanted me to go to the emergency room, which I wouldn't do. So Charlie ended up taking me home, and I stayed with him for 2 months, him and his family, while I was being treated as an outpatient.
Right. Looking back now, you can see that abortion probably was a big factor for why you were so significantly depressed, but you probably wasn't even aware that it was even connected to the depression.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
And having that abortion and not being able to have children just compounded everything.
Right.
Too.
Right.
So there was probably a whole lot more involved in that. But at the time, that's what happened.
You just knew that you weren't capable of living life. You had to take a leave of absence from work and stay with your brother.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his family.
Yeah. So did you start just, journaling, asking God, finding out spiritually, like, what do I need? How do I get out of this depression?
No, I didn't. I know God and I talked and I prayed, but I was so depressed that I wasn't even really functioning. I wasn't very clear in my head. It took me many, many months with counseling to get better.
Right.
Now, during this time, it was a little bit before this time, I met David, who I eventually married.
Yes. And I forgot to say that y'all been married for 35 years. So sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, it's
1991, y'all got married?
Yes. So, yes, 35 years. I was trying to think.
It's okay.
The older you get, the less you remember.
Oh, trust me, I know. So you met Dave, who ended up being your husband.
Right. But I had met him. He'd come into the doctor's office. Dave had been transferred from Texas up to Oregon, and he came into the doctor's office that I was working for because he needed to establish himself. And I remember him walking in, and he's got a pretty pretty strong voice, pretty loud, but not in an obtuse way or anything. And so he came in, and about a week later, I saw him at church. Now I saw him at church, and at that time, my divorce had not been final. But I was really not in any shape to even have a relationship with anybody. But he ended up, shortly after that, getting transferred back to Texas. And, of course, at the time, he asked me to move back and marry him. And I just looked at him. Sorry, Dave, you're going to hear this. But I just looked at him and said, you got to be crazy. I am just a mess.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I know and he knows. So I said, so are you telling me then I have no choice? And we just kind of laughed at it.
Yeah.
So he ended up going back to Texas. My sister Mary, the one that had brought me to the Lord, had always wanted to go on a missions trip. And so the church that we were going to at the time, we went on a mission trip, and we went to Mexico. We went over Thanksgiving, and we helped work on a clinic, but we also ministered to the families that lived in the dump, the city dump. And Dave went on that mission trip also because he had signed up to go, even though he had got transferred back from Texas. And so the group of us were there, and it was a life-changing experience for me, very life-changing.
Yeah.
And so I went home and told my parents that I was moving to Texas.
Wow.
Now, I wasn't thinking about marriage at the time, but
right.
It was.
So what year was that you went on that Mexico trip?
1989 or 1990.
Okay. And then you knew that you were headed to Texas at some point.
Yes. So I came home. I told my parents that I was moving. I packed myself up. I moved to Texas. Actually drove myself down and looked for a job and a place to live.
Good.
And here I am.
And so you and Dave eventually got married?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so through that time, when you went on that mission trip, the depression, it was starting to lift some.
Yes.
You could feel a change.
Yes.
In your spirit and in your mind and all of that.
I still was under treatment here when I moved to Dallas. I was still under treatment. not so much with having to see a psychiatrist, but with counseling and stuff. So
Right.
And we also found a church and started getting involved with that.
Right. So, so tell me how you got involved with abortion recovery. Like, I know something. I mean, I don't know this part of your story and on how you actually went through your first abortion recovery study.
I was talking to a younger lady at church and had told her that we were fairly new to the area. We were in Dallas. And I said, I really feel like I want to work with women who have had an abortion. It's kind of funny because we all say that, right? And so she said, well, why don't you my mom works for they called them crisis pregnancy centers at that time. And why don't you let me talk to her and see if they might, need you. And so they did. So I went and talked to the administrator of the clinic at the time. And of course, the standard question is, have you had an abortion? And I said, yes. And she said, well, then you have to go through a recovery Bible study. Of course, I didn't think I needed it, right?
Right. None of us do.
And so I went through a study called In His Image. I volunteered with that Pregnancy Resource Center for maybe 5 years. Grace, I forget about timing and all that.
No,
but it was at the time when the Pregnancy Resource Centers were putting in the medical clinic. And so being an RN, I helped them get the policies and procedures together and get the clinic up and going. And I ended up needing to take a break from it because I realized that I had given too much of myself and was finding myself getting angry with women that wanted to come in and have an ultrasound or establish pregnancy so they could decide if they were going to have an abortion or not. And I wanted to just slap them.
Right.
So I took a break from that. Ended up going to another pregnancy resource center, which was Real Options. But I went and helped a doctor do medical exams for the ladies. I was not involved in the abortion or the abortion recovery at that point. I started becoming a patient advocate, talking to the women, and then again I had to go through the Bible study because it was a new another resource center that I was at.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going through a study called Forgiven and Set Free. And through that, I started helping with the Bible studies.
Okay.
So in 2012, we moved to Lindell. And the church that I go to, Cross Brand Cowboy Church, Dave and I were meeting with the pastor, and I asked them if there was a pregnancy resource center in the area, and he happened to have CARES brochures. He said, I think a lady by the name of Grace came and talked to me.
Yeah.
So he handed this to me and said, why don't you investigate it? And I did, and so I got involved with CARE through that.
Okay. I did not know that. How funny. My abortion recovery study, I did it in 2001. It was In His Image. And Beverly Klein was the one who facilitated that study. I still have that study at home. Yes. And so it's tried and true. So, so it sounds like the Lord was working with you about that past abortion while you're going through these studies, while you're, learning how to mentor and, advise young women and all that. And, the anger that you were having toward these women that were still choosing whether to abort or not, I'm sure decreased as you started to realize where you have been. Right. And understood where they are at, Right. And
well, going through the studies, especially Forgiven and Set Free. Now, I'd also went through a couple other ones because when I came on board with CARE, I had to go through their studies too. And I laugh because I kept thinking, why do I have to do this? But you know what? God knew. And so I went through Surrendering the Secret, and then I went through a study called The Journey.
Yes.
That we had at CARE.
I know all 4 of those studies.
And each time I went through these studies, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more got taken away. And when it dawned on me that God wanted to he said he would forgive me.
Right.
But I could not receive that. And so, and I hear that often with the ladies now. I know God has forgiven me, but I can't forgive myself. And I realize we can't forgive ourselves. What we do is receive God's forgiveness. And when we can do that, we begin to get rid of the guilt and the shame and begin to realize that we are no longer identified by the abortion.
Correct.
And I felt that God had called me then to become more involved with the study, with CARE, to the point where I have felt for a few years that He has wanted me to speak, and I kept saying no because I didn't like to talk.
Right.
When growing up, I was very, very quiet, and I just did not want to talk. But yet, when you realize that you don't have to worry a whole lot about that because God's going to give you the words.
Right. He does. I think it's so sweet that every time you did a study, He unveiled one more layer that He had to peel off for you to realize how much He loved you and how much He wanted you to embrace the forgiveness that He'd been saying that He wanted to give you. And you're so right, Janet. I mean, so many post-abortive women don't feel that forgiveness is even something they can take, from God.
Right.
But I know because I've facilitated studies before in the past as well, and I got to a place where I would say, if you say that, I don't forgive myself, then you're almost saying that Jesus' death on the cross was in vain, and that couldn't wipe away my sin of abortion, which is totally the furthest thing from the truth. And once you realize just because of His grace and because of His mercy, and through His death, His blood cleanses all sin, including the sin of abortion. And it's so amazing. You have now facilitated a lot of studies now over the last 10 years.
I have. And so awesome to be able to walk with women through that. The initial couple, first couple chapters are really hard on them. And when they begin to listen to what God's telling them and realizing that He does want to forgive, He's got forgiveness for them.
Right.
And once they receive it, it's like night and day. And it's so awesome to see the change.
It is so night and day. It's just all God. And the countenance is, it's crazy. I love watching the Lord at work, So what did the Lord reveal to you about the baby that you had? He's in heaven now. So,
that it was a boy.
Okay.
And my first husband and I had picked out a name. So his name was Tyler.
Good.
And every Bible study I went through, there's a chapter where you talk about your child and you write a letter to God about the child. And I've looked back at those letters, and it's how much it's changed for me. And the last Bible study that I went to, The Journey, was in 2018 or 19. it was like God finally showed me that Tyler was in heaven with him and he was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to write a letter to Tyler that was very, very different than the letters that I had written before.
Right.
Because there was so much freedom in it.
Right.
And so during the journey, we had this activity where we were supposed to sit down and draw a picture, and you had the opportunity to sit and draw your own picture or copy a picture that they had given you.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down. Of course, I was thinking I was going to copy the picture. And I was sitting there, and I was very, very anxious and nervous because I do not have a lick of artistic ability in me at all. And I thought, how am I even going to copy a picture? And I was sitting there, and God just said, Janet, let me show you. And so I said, okay. And so
yes, I want you to show
this is what
viewers your painting.
How do I
that you had created?
So this is what God showed me to draw, or help me to draw. And what is just so awesome to me is that he's in heaven. I mean, I knew that. I knew that he was in heaven with God, but now I knew, and it's like he is God's angel. And this is supposed to be Jesus's hands with blood on them, because Jesus died for us.
Yeah.
And that now I can have complete freedom to know that he's okay. And so when I got all done, because once we drew the pictures, we had to stand up and talk about them. And one of the participants looked at me and said, Janet, do you realize you live in Tyler, Texas? And who would have ever thought I would have named it baby Tyler and moved to Tyler, Texas 40-some years. It's actually been 46 years this year.
Wow.
I had my abortion in 1980.
Wow. Yeah. So not till then did you connect to you that, he's named after the city I'm going to live in.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's like 46 years later, I'm back. I'm in a city called Tyler, and I'm finally able to leave Tyler in the hands of God.
Yeah. To get the women to get to that place where they can memorialize their baby and to give them a name and to acknowledge their humanity is actually a very healing step.
There is an activity we do in their Bible studies. It's the last day where we have a memorial service. See, when we've aborted our babies, we don't have an opportunity to really say goodbye to them.
Right.
I don't know if we could say goodbye to them at the time because we're so angry and so upset about it. But society doesn't really allow you to do that.
Right.
Because you have people that are for abortion and people that aren't. And so even though this is a child, no matter what stage it was in when we aborted it, we do need to be able to memorialize them.
Right.
And so we have a memorial service, which is really, really special, where the women light a candle and they get a birth certificate. Not a state birth certificate, just a birth certificate from the study, and are able to talk about their child. We also, some of the women know that what the sex of the baby was. Some of them feel God has shown them what the sex of the baby is, and many of them have a name. And so we actually have a name book that they get to look up their name of the baby,
good.
and
Good.
see how God views that name.
Right.
So it's very, very. It just touches my heart to see this.
Right. It's almost like there is a reunion, a spiritual reunion with you and the child, almost. You know what I mean? When you get to that place and to know that, wow, they're sitting at the right hand of Jesus right now, and it won't be long before we all meet our babies who are in heaven. Who, right. We'll know them fully finally, and so obviously, living through the trauma of the abortion and walking through the years of how you felt after the abortion to the place after, I guess, your 5th Bible study doing abortion recovery, that you finally were embracing God's forgiveness for really the very first time. And then the Lord, though, Janet, I even remember I was still active on CARE when you came on CARE. I remember we went to some conference in Dallas or something. I think it was Surrendering the Secret. But anyways, the Lord continues to heal. There's always memories and stuff that sometimes will resurface, and you just have to remember, like, okay, Lord, where have you taken me? But He could review something else about the abortion, about your baby, something that He wants you to acknowledge with Him. And so it's a continual thing. So it's not like you just do the study and poof, you're okay,
Right. And so now at the age I'm at, my brothers and sisters are all, of course, they've already had their children, but now they're becoming grandparents.
Yeah.
And so that's another little.
Right.
Just little thing that says, Janet, you'll never get to be a grandmother. So,
yeah, well, I know, but that's,
but yes. God has a great sense of humor because, talk about Gracie.
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes, please do.
So when we moved to Lindale in 2012, we bought some property, and my husband, David, wanted, to get a dog. He had dogs all his life growing up, and we did not have one when we were in the Dallas area because we both worked. But I also grew up not having a dog. We had a dog, and at the age of 4, I ended up taking the dog for a walk, and the dog took me for a walk, dragged me through all the mud. And when I got home, I ended up having to Mom gave me a bath and put a dress on me and said I couldn't go out to play anymore. So I had a little anger, I think, at dogs. But anyway, so Dave said, well, I want to get a dog. And I said, well, okay, but they're not going to be in the house. I don't want to lick them. I don't want them licking me.
Right.
And you're going to have to feed them. You're going to have to take care of them. And so we ended up actually, we got a dog before Gracie, but she ended up getting shot after having her about 6 weeks. Because when you live in the country, if you don't keep your dog on the property, apparently you can.
People will shoot him.
Yeah. So we ended up finding Gracie, and we picked her up the day we got home from my mom's funeral. And that's how come she got the name Gracie, because both my parents really liked Amazing Grace. So we brought Gracie home, and there was an old chicken coop on the property that was probably about 30 yards, at the most 50 yards from the kitchen window. And that's where Dave put Gracie. And she sat there and stared.
At you?
I swear she stared at me because I was standing in the kitchen looking up and just looking and staring. And in 24 hours, she was in the house. And I did not really even think what God was doing at that time, but He allowed me to be a mom to Gracie.
Awesome.
And that was pretty neat, pretty awesome.
Right.
Now, we also joined the trail ride team at Cross Brand. And so I told Dave that I wanted to learn to ride a horse. And so I have, we have 2 horses. And we had 2 dogs. Unfortunately, Gracie, we had to put Gracie down in November of this last year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But, it's the animals are really like kind of being like a mom to them, but they just never grow up. But gosh, they just love you so unconditionally.
They do.
And
they do.
Yeah,
that's so sweet.
I've had the opportunity to be a mom to them, and I really thank God for that, because I did not realize, even in 2012, how my heart was like a stone. Because I didn't have children, and I could not share in everybody's joy with their children.
Right.
My brothers and sisters' grandchildren. But God used Gracie to open up my heart.
That's great.
And allowed me to give some love.
Right. How long did you have Gracie?
We picked her up in 2013.
Okay. And
the vet thought she was about 2 years old then.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet thing. I know. Yeah. It wasn't that long ago when you had to put Gracie down. I know that was really difficult for you, so.
Yes.
But I think somehow God in His providence that, you'll be with her again one day.
I hope so. I hope so.
So.
But she's still with me because she gave me so much.
Right. That's wonderful. And you still have your horse?
I do.
Yeah.
Mouse. He's a character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all are so country.
And you would, my brothers and sisters are just can't believe it, because we grew up in the city. We didn't have animals. We grew up in the city, and I lived in the city all my life until we moved to Lindale.
And I did want you to mention, the sister who led you to the Lord, she did pass away a few years ago, but you got to speak at her funeral.
Yes. Mary, So she was, I'm trying to think, let's see,
she loved Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't around a lot when she was growing up, because she was enough younger than me that by the time I graduated from college, we moved out of the area we lived in. And so I didn't know a lot about Mary. So she brought me to the Lord in 1987, and then she was killed in a car wreck in 1992.
Wow. Yeah.
And I spoke at her funeral, and it was another one of those God moments.
Right.
Because I was up speaking, and I didn't really want to speak, but I needed to share Mary.
Oh, yes. She knew how to reach you when you were not reachable, Janet,
Yes, she did.
And it was all the Lord, how He put that on her heart, sent you the Bible and the Devo, and simply just saying, have you talked to Jesus about your grief? And she knew exactly what to say to you. And, at the time when you read it, I'm sure your heart was still very stony, in denial, and that's why you put the thing up. Like, okay, whatever kind of thing. But then a month later, for unknown reason, He told you to pick up that Devo and walk to the chapel.
Right.
So, He doesn't give up.
It's a good lesson for all of us, because we've all got people in our life that we would love for them to know the Lord. But talking to them isn't going to bring them to the Lord typically. But by doing something like what Mary did and left it up to me.
Right.
And then God took over and got a hold of me.
Right.
And so as I'm still a lot of my brothers and sisters don't know the Lord, and I wish they did. But all I can do is emulate how I am. The unfortunate part is they all live. We're all scattered, so I don't get to spend a lot of time with them. but I pray for them. I pray for all my friends too that don't know the Lord, and I just try to be what God wants me to be with them, and then the rest of it's up to Him.
Right.
We so often, though, shy away from that because we don't want to make people mad,
right,
or get into arguments with them.
Right. Right. Yeah, I have several in my family that are not believers, and we try to make the most of our conversation, and it's pretty much just sharing with what God has done in your life is what He wants you to do, and for them to see a difference that maybe this Jesus thing is a real thing, and one day, I will come to Him, kind of thing. That's our prayer for them, so. But yeah, I mean, Janet, it's just so total 180 how your life was when you were depressed, and now, ever since I've known you, you've always been very joyful, and I would have never imagined you ever being depressed, but just how Jesus just really kept speaking into your life, and, He brought Dave into your life, which I'm sure. I have not met your husband, but I'm sure he's very affirmative and loving, and, and I'm sure at some point you shared with him about the abortion from your first marriage and stuff.
Well, he knew about it because he was very much involved with me when I suffered that breakdown.
Yeah.
Even though we had to go back to Texas, he was very much involved with my brother and family and stuff, making sure I was okay and stuff.
Right, right.
So, yeah, he knew.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I don't know. I just think now you freely tell your testimony without any hesitation when the Lord leads. Right?
Little bit of hesitation. I want to share it, but getting over the nerves and, like how am I going to look on this, or how am I going to what the words that I'm going to say, am I saying them right? That's still human nature.
Oh, it is. It is. It is. So,
but each time it gets a little bit easier.
It does, and you just let Him speak through you. So, yeah, I got to a place where, when I used to first start speaking, I would always start off, Janet, by saying, I am not a public speaker. My husband would tell me, you need to quit saying that. You're undermining yourself. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that. So after a while, I did quit saying that and realized, all right, I'm not a born natural speaker, but I'm going to get up there because the Lord told me I need to share my story of what you have done in my life. And so every time that I've done that, the less you think about how you are going to sound, what you look like, all the things that are all about us.
Right.
And our focus is not on us anymore, but it's on what Jesus has done with the story.
Yep.
Yeah. And then one of these days you're going to go, piece of cake. But anyhow, Janet, tell us about some of the resources. I know you have brought the Forgiven and Set Free book with you.
Yes.
And you had, I know there's websites that we can list in our show notes.
Well, Real Options, which is a resource center out of Dallas, and it's really growing, was very instrumental in my healing. And so I tried to stay in contact with them through their newsletters. There's a site on it's out of Florida, but it's online. It's called Support After Abortion, and they have monthly webinars.
Yes,
where you can through Zoom can partake in it.
Are those training seminars?
Training, yes. I guess you can say that. What they do is they pick different topics and talk about it, and talk about how how to use that as you help women or men through the study.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't listen to all of them, but that's a good resource also.
Right. Yeah, I've looked them up, and it looks like they've got tons of resources. Right.
Actually, CARE was called from them about somebody that lived here in the area that wanted some help, and we had gotten in touch with them. So they're like a what's it called? I'm not sure what the word is, but it's like they're the organization, and if people call in from all over, they will find people that are in the area to help them.
Yes. So liaison or somebody that refers like to somebody in the area. So, no, that is wonderful. And yeah, so there are a lot of resources that people can find online for healing from abortion. And, as you know, men also need healing just as much as women need healing. And so, and it's a very underdeveloped area, I feel, still for men. But I feel more men are starting to speak about it. So
it's good.
Yeah. And so, Gina, what would you say to somebody who's listening who had an abortion many years ago for whatever reason, and they had not even thought about the abortion in a very, very long time, and now they're hearing this story and they're wondering, I don't need that. Kind of like, I don't want to talk about that. You still dismiss it, and you're still in denial that abortion actually had any impact on you. I mean, what would you tell somebody who's kind of at that stage?
So I was thinking about this a lot because I don't feel I can tell somebody what to do. All I can do is share my story, share how God has healed me, and that I want that for them too.
Right.
I would probably explore a little bit with them about their life and, do they feel they can talk about their baby? Do they feel like that there's no anger and grief anymore?
Right.
Typically, there still is, and I would really encourage them to get a hold of an organization such as CARE, because the women that facilitate our Bible studies have all gone through abortions, and they know what they're going through.
Right.
And that there is help.
Right.
Nothing's worse than having that in the back of your heart, in the back of your mind for years and years and years.
Right.
Because it has affected your life.
Right.
You just probably don't realize it because you have gotten used to it.
Right. Or you've put other things in place so you don't even have to think about it.
Right.
And so, no, but that is good because I have told when I was practicing medicine and I had patients that would come in and, they would share their life with me. And, my life when I spiraled out of control after my abortion in college. And oftentimes I will just ask them, have you had a past abortion? And 2 out of 3 times they would look at me with this awful look and just say, how did you know? And I would just say, because my life is exactly what your life is going through right now. I mean, I felt all those things that, you're struggling with now. And so it's easier for me to pick it out because I've been there, and it's easier for me because I've had an abortion. I'm not judging them, but I want them to know that there is a better life for them, that you don't have to live the way that you are. And you don't need to keep, sabotaging, yourself and, battling, addictive behaviors. Because, those are all, consequences, PTSD symptoms, from the abortion. And you don't even know it. I didn't know it at the time either, So, but like you say, you just share what God has done and how much He has healed you and freed you from it. And, just always having that open dialogue, when you see them.
So about a month ago, I was sitting next to a lady at church, and she was fairly new and was asking about if I was involved with any of the ministries. And I said, no, I wasn't, because I'm involved with a ministry outside of the church. And so she asked me what it was, and I said, care. And she immediately put her head down and looked away from me. And the pastor started speaking, and so I didn't have an opportunity to ask her anymore. But when he was through, I said, no, she said, I know about care. And so I asked her, how do you know about care? And she said, well, I picked up a bathroom card. And then she shared with me that she had had an abortion.
Yeah.
And so I have been speaking with her, and she's probably going to go through a study when her schedule allows it. Wow. So you just never know.
You just really don't know. Yeah. It just makes my heart smile to know that the organization is going strong and that it's reaching people.
Yes.
And
I think we as facilitators are becoming more bold too, and we aren't waiting necessarily for the women to come to us, but we are trying to go to the women without being obnoxious about it.
Yes.
We're just being there, and then we're being honest about our stories. And,
Right. Just being available.
Yeah.
Well, Janet, thank you so much.
Would you let me share a scripture?
Sure, please do.
That was one of the questions you had asked about scriptures.
Scripture verses that really helped you.
Yes, they did. But the one that really speaks to me at this point is Isaiah 61, 1 through 3. So before we close, I'd like to just share it with.
Yeah.
The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. And they will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of His splendor. It's just a scripture that speaks about what God has done in my life, and that now I've been called to become an oak of righteousness and show other women what God has done in my life. And this also speaks for care or any other post-abortive recovery, because this is exactly what we do, is we try to set the captives free.
Yes. And it makes such a difference in the lives of these women. They are so changed.
Yep.
And it's just so awesome that God's chosen us to be able to be in part of that work, and watching Him change the lives of these women that He brings to you. So,
well, it's because He changed our lives.
Yes, I
first.
know He did, and this is the least we can do for Him.
Yep.
So, well, thank you, Janet. I really enjoyed our conversation. So, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yes. Well, that wraps up today's Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace, and I will see you the next time. Bye now.
This podcast is made possible in part by Express Employment Professionals, the leading staffing agency in East Texas, helping thousands of businesses find the right employees. If you're looking for a job, visit expresspros.com to learn more. If you enjoyed this podcast, visit deepintheheartministries.com/podcast, where you can find all previous episodes, subscribe to our channel, or leave a suggestion for future topics. You can also email Grace at drgraceenglish.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.